So in this video, I want to talk about one of the example of SAT math problem. And the question is, which is equivalent with the following expressions. 3xy squared over x minus 5 times 2x minus 3. All of that plus 7z to the first power times 4 over 5x squared plus 16x plus 12. And if you analyze the fractions, there will obviously gonna be two denominators, but one of them is formed by a binomial one. Another one is formed by a quadratic one, which the leading coefficient is not equal to 1. So using this pattern, we learned about the solution in the last video, and it is formed by a two-step. And in the first step, we need it is a fraction, which means we need to have a simplification by having a reduction. And in a second step, leave every single terms except for a quadratic one which the leading coefficient is not equal to 1 and convert that into a binomial. The reason why we convert that into a binomial is that in order to have a simplification, we need to have a reduction by making the denominators into common. In order to do that, we need to multiply every single factors except for a common one, but for a quadratic one, it is hard to find the factors to calculate, and it will make us to calculate a complicated one. So since we need that a biggest exponent in this quadratic is 2, that means we can convert that into a binomial. So if you were asked to factor 5x squared plus 16x plus 12 into a binomial, that means we need to factor it into a two nomials multiplication. That means according to a binomial theorem, there will obviously gonna be a two nomials. If the x squared term's coefficient is just 1, it will going to be x times x, which makes 1x squared. But we need to think about in terms of 5, which is not equal to 1. That means this term and this term should be a factor of the 5, which is equal to 1 times 5. So we can input our values 1x times 5x, which makes 5x squared. And then let's think about in terms of this unknown quantity that I'm pointing out. If we multiply together, it's gonna give us 12, and if we add it, it will gonna give us 16x. So we need to think about in terms of 12's factor. So the factor of 12 is at first 1 times 12. And then I'll just write 1 times 12, 2 times 6, and then 3 times 4. At first, the answer is 2 times 6. I'll tell you why, and let's prove why the other values are wrong. So at first, there will be a two binomials. So there will be two nomials. We know the basic for 1x times 5x. And if we input our value to n is 6, it will going to be 1x plus 2 times 5x plus 6. But 1x times 6 is a value of 6x. The plus 2 times 5x is just 10x. The thing that I'm doing right now is to find with the factor of the 5 and for the factor of 12, if we multiply together and if we add it, we're going to see if we satisfy our 16x. But 6x plus 10x, it is equal to 16x, which satisfy this original one. And then let's go to the second one. So I'll do 1x times 12. So 1 times 12, which will going to be 1x plus 1 times 5x plus 12. 1x times 12 is 12x. And the plus 1 times 5x is just 5x, which will going to give us 17x. But 17x is not equal to 16x, so we can cancel this out from our answers. Let's go to the last one, which is 3 times 4. If you input 3 and a 4, it will going to be 3x, 1x plus 3 times 5x plus 4. 1x times 4 is 4x, and then plus 3 times 5x is 15x. We're trying to see the value of the factor of 5 and 12. If we add it together, it gives us 16x. But it is 19x, which is not equal to 16x. So we can cancel this out from our value. So we can say that for a 5x squared plus 16x plus 12, if we convert that into a binomial, it will going to give us 1x plus 2 times 5x plus 6. And all we have to remember is that we need to think about it in terms of 16x. We don't have to multiply 1x times 5x or this number is 2 times 6 because we already know that we're going to give us 12 over 5x squared. It's kind of wasting time. All you have to see is that if we add it and multiply it together, if it gives us 16x or not. So we knew that after we converted 5x squared plus 16x plus 12 into a binomial, we got the answer 1x plus 2 times 5x plus 6. So we can go back to our own page, and then we can bring our whole expression down again, which will going to give us 3xy squared. And in the denominator, it will going to be equal to x minus 5 times 2x minus 3, x minus 5 times 2x minus 3, and then plus, if you multiply 7z to the fourth power times 4 to simplify this expression, it will going to be 28z to the fourth power, and then in the denominator, it will going to be, instead of 5x squared plus 16x plus 12, we got the answer that it is 5x plus 6 times x plus 2. So here comes our fraction property. In order to have a reduction to simplify, we need to make a common denominator by multiplying every single factors together except for a common one. But if you look at our denominators, there is no common one, which means we can just multiply every single terms. So it will going to be equal to, in the denominator, it will going to be x minus 5 times 2x minus 3 times 5x plus 6 times x plus 2. The numerator will going to be 3xy squared. But in the denominator, we multiply that 5x plus 6 times x minus 2, which means we also need to multiply the same thing into a numerator so we can keep an equal fraction. So also for the next one, it will going to be 28z to the fourth power. Before that, we can simplify the denominator into the same terms. So it will going to be equal to x minus 5 times 2x minus 3 times 5x plus 6 times x plus 2. So we get 28 to the z to the fourth power, but since we multiplied 5x minus 5 times 2x minus 3 in the denominator, we also need to multiply that into a numerator so we can keep a equal fraction. So for the denominator, they share a common one, so we don't have to write it for 2 times. We can just write it 1 time. In the denominator, it will going to be equal to x minus 5 times 2x minus 3 times 5x plus 2, 5x plus 6 times x plus 2. And in the numerator, we could have just simplified this expression, but we can bring our whole expression down. 3xy squared times 5x plus 6 times x plus 2, all of that plus 28z to the fourth power times x minus 5 times 2x minus 3. We could have just extended this multiplication, but before we do that, let's look at some choices. At first, 3xy squared for the 5x plus 6 times x plus 2, it is the same expression as we did in the last purge. So we can say that this is our choices for our answer. So all you have to remember is that we need to simplify the fraction in order to have a reduction. and then leave every single terms except for a quadratic one, which the leading coefficient is not equal to 1. We need to convert that into a binomial.